Hello everyone, welcome back to the second video in our trigger series. In the last video, we understood the basics of SQL triggers, why they were used, and saw a real-life example that made triggers easy to relate to. In this video, we are going to step ahead. We will explore some real-time scenarios where triggers play a crucial role like automatic logging, data auditing, enforcing business rules, and even blocking unwanted changes. Then we will dive into the two major types of triggers you will use most often. DML triggers, which will fire on insert, update, or delete operations, and DDL triggers, which will respond to structural changes like create, alter, or drop commands. Understanding these will help you write smarter, more secure, and automated SQL script. So stay tuned and let's make your SQL skills trigger ready. And hey, if you have not already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more SQL master tips. Let's try to understand a couple of practical scenarios where we can really use trigger and we can leverage the feature of triggers in real time. So the first is auditing changes in a table. A table may get changed. I mean, somebody can do some changes to a table, be it any employee or whosoever is authorized to do that, but you want to keep track of that. So the tracking of user activity can be done. What you can do is that you can create an after insert or after update or after delete trigger, and they can actually capture the details, what changes were done and when they were done. So you want to track every time a record is inserted, updated, or deleted in the table. This can be done using an after update, after insert, or after delete trigger. Make sense? Scenario second, preventing unwanted data deletion. So you are working on a crucial system, or your system is very crucial where data is very important, and you don't want that unwanted data should be deleted. So what you can do is that you can write an instead of trigger. Instead of trigger does what? It gets fired in place of something. Like if you are writing instead of delete, so whenever you will try to delete, it will get execute there. And it will not actually delete, but it will do the activities which you have written there in instead of delete trigger. So you want to block users from deleting data from critical table like customers orders. You can actually write instead of triggers, and which will solve the purpose for you. Scenario 3, enforcing a business rule. You want to enforce a business rule. Let's say you are working on a product wherein there are prices of items, and you really want to track that if somebody changes the pricing, increasing the pricing of any item, and if it goes beyond this limit, let's say $10,000, then you want to notify this to admin or to somebody. You want to perform some action. So what you can do is that you can actually write an instead of trigger. So what will happen if somebody will try to update the value and it is more than or equal to $10,000, then it will notify, it will insert some details to some other table, or it will perform some other activities. And this way you can actually enforce the business rule in the system. Make sense? Another scenario, automatic login to DDL activities. What could be the DDL activities? Like you can create table, you can alter table, you can drop table. So these things, and you want to keep track of that, who did the table alteration. Let's say you change the size of the field of the existing table, and you want to really keep track of that. So you can create actually a DDL trigger, which will do the, which will serve the purpose for you, and which will track all those details, who did the alteration or changes, and when those things can be captured. Scenario number 5, syncing data between tables. So you have two tables, and you wish that once any entry is done in first table, the same should be repeated, or some selected data from the first entry, which we have done in table 1, should be going to table 2 also. The real-time scenario is that you have orders table. So once any entry comes to orders table, there is a part of this value should also go to TVL order tracking. So this way you can create what? You can create after insert trigger. So what it will fire after the insert, and which will be also inserting part of the data which has been inserted in orders table to another table. So this way you can enforce syncing of data between tables using triggers. Make sense? So we have covered almost 5 scenarios. There are so many others which you can utilize and you can use the feature of triggers. Let's go and try to understand the types of triggers. There are majorly 3 types of triggers. DML triggers, that is data manipulation language trigger. DDL trigger, that is data definition language trigger. And LOGON trigger is the third one. If you're talking about DML trigger, they fire automatically when you perform any DML activities, data manipulation activities. And what are those? You are performing some insert, you are performing some update or delete on a table. So DML triggers can be written in 2 different event patterns. If I'm telling event patterns means when. So these DML trigger will execute after of insert, after of update, after of delete, or instead of insert. So if you're writing instead of insert, it fires instead of insert. So any insert that will take place on the table, the actual insert will not happen, but this trigger will fire and it will do its part. Make sense? So this is about DML trigger. Talking about DDL trigger. So DDL activities like create, alter, drop, grant, revoke, these are all DDL activities. So triggers written on or fires on the response to DDL activities are called DDL triggers. And these are basically used for auditing schema changes. So you have done a very good database design and you want to keep track on that. If somebody changes any design or a schema, you want to really keep track of that, and they can utilize DDL triggers over there. The third is LOGON triggers. If you're talking about LOGON triggers, it fires when a session is being established. And it is used for restricting logins, enforcing logins, policies, or logins attempts. The very typical example is that you have a multi-shift company wherein people work in different shifts, night shifts and day shifts, and you have the group created. Let's say you have created logins as night users or day users, and you don't want to allow day users to be logged in or to be able to log into the database in nights. So you can write LOGON triggers there, and you can actually, this trigger will make sure that if somebody logs in and he belongs to, let's say, day group, and he is trying to, or he or she is trying to log in the night, it will refuse. So this type of things can be used, and real-time scenarios can be performed using LOGON triggers. Let's go and see these things in action. I am in SQL Server Management Studio, and the first trigger that we have written is, which does what? Which is trying to insert a value to another table. So we are going to actually do what? You are going to do a data syncing. So what is the scenario? The scenario is we have employee table wherein the employee details are inserted. And what happens? So a company may have employees, which has employee ID, employee name, email, and salary. But then they have login tables also. Or you can say users table also, wherein they have the users and their login ID and their password, etc. So you want that whenever any employee record is inserted, you want that same employee ID to be there in users table as well. This is the simplest use case and very much required in real-time scenarios. Make sense? So employee table is the master table, it's there, but whenever any employee entry is there, let's say a company, an employee joins to a company, so his data is inserted. At the same time, his details should also be the part of users table, because then he will be logging into the company's many portal systems. So his user ID also should be created. Make sense? So this is the requirement. So we have created 2 tables. We have 2 tables here, TBL employees, which has got employee ID, employee name, email, and salary. And we have got TBL users, which has got employee ID, password, date created, and is active. Is active is a bit type which says whether this user is active or not. Make sense? Let's go and create this table. This table has been created. Let's go and create another table as well. We have created this table. Now, let's go and see the example of this trigger. What are we going to do in this trigger? This is if exist statement. It is pretty much clear to you. This is to make sure whether the trigger already exists, then we are deleting. So to write your script foolproof, we Just add this at the beginning. Here I'm going to create a trigger called TGTBL employees after insert. So as the name suggests, this is a trigger which will be created after insert. And this will be created on the table called TBL employees. And here is the event after insert. Okay, so self-explanatory, the line is pretty clear. And here's the body starts and ends. What I'm doing is I'm going to insert the details into TBL users table. And then I'm going to insert employee ID, password, date created, and is active. And I'm selecting inserted. So we have already talked about magic tables. So there are two magic tables that create during the trigger creation: deleted and inserted. So inserted holds the data when we have done with the inserts. So the old whatever data that you have inserted will be temporarily stored in inserted table. So what we are doing is we are going to get it from inserted table. So employee ID, and then we are going to create just a password like password for employee ID. So just a simple password that we are concatenating PWD for, and then with the employee ID, just to make it simple. And then we have called get date, which is what you call current date, and one is this active is one from inserted. So inserted table is a magic table that you already know. So this way, let's go and create this trigger. The trigger gets created, and let's do the magic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to insert 5 records into employees table. And since we have written a trigger, which is after insert, it should ideally be doing its magic, and all the employee details, all the employee numbers also should be the part of users table. Right now, if you see these two tables have nothing. Let's go and select these. So I'm going to insert 5 records, and you see that the trigger has played its role, and you see here Sumit Kumar, and his details are also the part of users table. Password for 1, password for 2, password for 3, and date created and is active. Everything is there. So this way we could achieve that data syncing from one table to another. The moment you inserted record in employee table, the same record details, some of the details from that same record went to another table as well. Let's go and see another example. In this example, what I'm trying to do is whenever any employee record is deleted, the same should be stored in archive table. Now, let me explain you the concept of archive table. In organizations, they don't want to lose the data. So what happens if they have some old data, let's say 1 year old or 2 years old or 3 years old, depending upon the requirement, they archive them. They keep them into tables called archive tables. So what happens anytime in future, if they need for any reference that old data, they can retrieve it back and they can use it. So this is what in this case we are going to understand. So whenever any deletion takes place, the data has to go to archive table so that we can use it in future. Again, we are creating one table, employee ID, employee name, email, and salary. Let's create it, table created, and then let's insert 5 records to it. Insert it. Here, we are also going to create an archive table. So this archive table is the replica of our normal table because it is going to store all these data. Along with this also stores something called date deleted. I mean, on which day the data was deleted so that it came to archive table. Make sense? Let's create this table. Table has been created. Now let's go to write this trigger. Here, I'm writing this trigger. Again, this is if exist. It's pretty clear to you. And this trigger will execute after delete. And the trigger name is TBL employee after delete on TBL employees. So any deletion that will take place on TBL employees, this trigger will execute and it will do its activity. Make sense? So what I'm doing in the body of the trigger is I am going to insert into TBL employee archive, employee ID, employee name, email, salary, and date deleted. And all this data I am retrieving from magic table called deleted. And this is the current date. Make sense? Let's go and create this trigger. Trigger has got created. Now let's try to select these tables. The table has our main table has 5 records, but archive table has no record because we have not deleted any record as of now. Let's go and delete one record. I'm going to delete employee number 1. The employee has been deleted. Let's go and check these two tables again. You see that Sumit Kumar has been deleted from main table, but it is now the part of archive table. And this magic happened because of the trigger that we wrote, which was after delete. Make sense? Hope this is clear now. Let's go and jump into the third example. In this example, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to do some other activities. What is that activity? So there are two concepts, soft delete, hard delete. Soft delete is a kind of delete wherein we actually do not delete data from main table, but we actually toggle the flag. Let's say isActive flag is there and it always holds 1 by default. That means that person is active. But any point of time, if you don't want to, if this person departs from this company or leaves this company, so instead of deleting his whole data, what will we do? We'll turn this flag to 0. Means he is no more active. This is what we achieve. This is what we do, and we are going to achieve through this trigger. So let's go and try to create this table. Table has been created. Let's insert 5 records to this table. 5 records have been inserted. And then let's select the data from this table. Data is fine. All 1, 1, 1. Everybody is active. What I'm going to achieve it is, I'm not going to physically delete the data, but instead I'm going to do a soft delete. In soft delete, what will happen? This is active field will become 0. So that whenever whosoever will have is active is 1 will be considered as active employees, but whosoever will have is active is 0 will be considered as inactive, or the person is not anymore with the company. Make sense? So what we are doing here is we are creating an instead of delete trigger. So as definition, we have already learned that this trigger will execute instead of delete. So you are going to delete any record from this table. So delete will actually not happen, but instead of this delete, this thing will happen. And what we are going to do is here, we are just going to change the isActive field to 0. Wherever, when the employee ID is the employee ID which you are trying to delete. Make sense? Let's go and create this trigger. Trigger has been created. And here comes the data. The data is perfect. 1, 1, 1. Everybody is having 1, 1, 1. But let's go and delete this. I'm going to delete Sumit, the record number 1. This has been deleted. Now let's go and see. The trigger has turned this is active to 0. Now this Sumit Kumar is no more active employee. So actual deletion did not happen, but instead of deletion, the flag was changed to 0. Make sense? Perfect. Let's go and see the final example in this video. The final example is I'm going to create a DDL trigger. This DDL trigger will keep track of many things. The trigger will there is a table that we are going to create is called TBL DDL audit log, which will take care of any object which you have deleted. What is the type of object? What is the name of object? Database name, login name, host name, event date. So we know from definition that it will track the DDL activities that you have performed. And how to create? If exists that you already know, the trigger name is TGDDL table changes. And TGDDL table changes, that create trigger TGDDL table changes on database. Here you have to say it is on database. And for create table, for alter table, for drop table, it will all fire on these 3 activities. And here in the body of the trigger, what we are going to do, we are inserting these data. So these are all system functions which you can use to retrieve data from event data. So here we are going to retrieve event type, object name, object type, and database name. System user will give the login user details. Host name will give you the host name and everything. Make sense? So let's go and try to create this trigger. This trigger gets created. Let's go and select this table. No, this table has a creation. This has captured the creation thing that we have just created a table. A table is in this database. This is the login name, and this is the host name and all. And let's go and try to create another table. I'm going to create a test table. Table has been created, and let's go to check if this has logged something. Obviously, this has logged. Test table has been created, and these are all details. And this way, you can alter the table as well. Let's say I'm going to alter this table, test table. I'm going to add one field to it, DT offset table. This has been done. Let's go and select this and check. See, this is alter table has happened, and this is all details. This way, you can create a DDL trigger, which will keep track of every activity that you do related to DDL on the tables or views. I hope the concept of DDL and DML triggers, which I have discussed with you with all real-time examples, are pretty much clear to you. In next session in this series, we're going to talk about LOGON triggers in detail. I will take one real-time example and exactly show you how LOGON triggers can be used for restricting user logins or refusing user logins and controlling the security. And I will also discuss many interviews question based on triggers. Don't forget to watch that. If you have not watched the previous video, go and watch that as well. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more high quality technical content. Drop your question in comments and I will be happy to answer them. See you in the next one. Bye.